Eddie, nice to see you. Firstly, before we get on to the cup final, we just had some breaking news in the last moment that Dan Burn has received his first call up to the England squad by Thomas Tuchel. What a moment for him, what a moment for the football club.
Yeah, incredible moment for Dan, and I have to say there's no one more deserving in my opinion. Starting to work with Dan when we did and came in obviously during our relegation battle, just such an inspiring guy, but also a very talented player, and I think it's a great story really, one of the great football stories, one of the great comebacks, someone who had to do it the real hard way, coming through the leagues, dedicated, professional, a leader, a real man, an inspirational figure.
Just 2 days ago, I was actually out at his former youth club, Blythe Spartans, where he came through from the age of 5, and his coach back then said they never thought he would ever make it to sort of even sort of League 1, League 2 level, but to come all the way through the gears right up to the Premier League, now receiving an England squad call up at the age of 32, and you touched on it there. It is remarkable how much of that is due to his character and personality and determination to just keep going.
Yeah, I'd probably say 99% of it, because he is the model pro really. He's so committed to what he does, and I think he's had to be. I mean, he's been given great strengths, his size and his height. They're brilliant weapons to have on a football pitch, especially as a centre half. But then you've got to improve all the other areas of your game to sort of see that as a big strength, and he's done that for me. And his character is so stable, so level, that he takes every challenge and every potential negative in his stride and comes back stronger. And I'm so pleased for him on a personal level, because he's thoroughly deserved it.
Have you had the chance to see him this morning?
Very briefly, he told us about the call-up, so very briefly just before coming here, so no time to celebrate with him, straight into this room.
No dancing from him?
Not yet. Still time.
I suppose it's a strange one in a way. I know obviously you won't want to be thinking beyond Sunday at this point, but obviously if you do lift the cup, he'll be straight off to meet up with his new England teammates. It's a different dynamic for him, not celebrating with the friends and family, should you win, of course.
Yeah, I think that's a difficult one for anyone to go to mentally, but I just think it is separate from the cup final. This is just a great moment for Dan, and of course for Newcastle, but the cup final is of course all we're thinking about right now.
So on the cup final, how are you feeling? How are the squad feeling? How different at all does it feel to 2 years ago?
Feeling very good, thanks. I think it does feel different. I think the whole thing this season's felt different in the sense that I think we've just gone about our business in a really calm, controlled way, professional way. We've had a really tough run of fixtures in the Carabao Cup, and I think to attack those games in the way that we did, and of course you're in the midst of a busy campaign, Premier League, FA Cup. We've sort of just gone from round to round, and now we've ended up in the final, but there's been a lot less emotion. There's been a lot less noise, I think, outside of sort of in here. And hopefully that helps us in our performance in the game. You never quite know what effect that will have, but we've been very much focused on our build-up and preparation and getting the game plan right. So I'd say that's the biggest difference.
It felt very much like you needed a bit of a bounce, a bit of momentum to go into the final with. It feels like you got that after the performance on Monday against West Ham, a real team effort. And I think you could probably see by the celebrations at the end that it was a real big thing to give you guys a lift going into Sunday.
Yeah, we needed it. We really did. We needed a confidence boost, a confidence lift from somewhere, and I think the only thing that could give us that was winning that game. So we knew in our preparation for the game how big it was. We had a long time to prepare for that game after Brighton, so I was very pleased with the execution. It wasn't pretty, but it was just what we needed. And I think the scenes at the end, I think the players knew that as well. I think we all knew that. So this week's been a good week in preparing for the game.
I just want to ask you one more, if you don't mind, about the fans, because Bruno made a good point, I felt, after the match on Monday night in his interview, when he said, look, we're away from St James's Park, but it's 50-50. There's 50% Newcastle fans, 50% Liverpool fans, and we know how loud the Newcastle fans can be. Is that something you need to take into your mind, that this isn't a away game, this is a neutral venue, and the Newcastle fans in many ways can be that 12th man for you?
Yeah, I'm sure they will be for us. I think they always are. They were at West Ham. We know from the last time we got to the final, the scenes driving up to Wembley, the feeling of support and unity that we had, the expression the fans give in every game is huge for us. And yeah, we're going to need them. We're absolutely going to need that 50% to turn into 55 if possible. We need every bit of help we can to push us over the line.
Thanks, Keith. Nisha?
Hi, Eddie. What do you think is the biggest lesson that you learned from 2 years ago, and how have you evolved as a head coach since then?
Difficult to say. I think for me, my own personal perspective, because you go from game to game and you're just trying to do your best. I'm sure I have changed and evolved in ways that maybe I don't even realise. Following that cup final, we've gone into the Champions League. We've had a lot more Premier League experience. So I think we're maybe become more accustomed to the bigger games. That's been part of what we've done since we've been here. So I think, hopefully, we're robust enough to deal with any challenge that's thrown in front of us. Yeah, I'd say that's probably the biggest change. Maybe that big game experience. Hopefully that will help us when we need it.
There'll be times where a team almost selects itself, but how difficult is your team selection been for this game on Sunday?
Genuinely, whenever I look at a team selection for any game, there's always decisions to make. That'll be no different for this game, because you're always looking at the opposition and your own strengths and trying to figure out what players need to go up against certain players. So that's what we've done. We don't have a huge pool of players to select from. That's pretty obvious. We have a very tight squad. And in some senses that can help you in different moments, and that can also be a negative. But I think we're in a good place after the win on Monday night. That was the key thing. And all the players are feeling a lot more confident.
Have you talked about that feeling when you lost against Manchester United to kind of use it as even more motivation for Sunday?
No, we've not gone back to that game at all, really. I think it's pretty much irrelevant. The occasion, yes, but the game itself and the feelings and emotions, the players don't need reminding of how that feeling of losing, how painful that is after a game like that, and how long that lives with you, and it's still with us to a degree. So, no, we've just focused on this game and where we are. We're a different team. We've got different players. We're very much positive. We're going in with a positive mindset. We're going to try and be very much ourselves and give a good expression of what we do.
And just finally, is there any injury updates following that West Ham game?
Yeah, well, of course, the long term are the long term now. So Lewis Hall recovering after his operation, Sven recovering after his operation, Jamal still making progress to come back, Anthony suspended. Apart from that, we hope to have a full squad.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nisha. Simon?
Good morning, Eddie.
Morning.
I'm sure everybody in this room in the past couple of weeks has written a piece about Newcastle's long history without winning a trophy. What does that mean to you?
It's a difficult one, because I think a lot's made of that, and of course I understand why. But I think it's a real motivation for us to try and break that long time and that long wait that everyone's feeling here. It should be inspiring for us, not a negative. And I understand it will be a negative or perceived negative for a lot of people, but we're trying to look at it the other way around. A chance to make history for us as a team. That's very rare in football. You get very few opportunities to do that. Chance to be remembered positively, which again is not very many times in your career you get a chance to do that. So I think they're all positive outcomes. And I want the players to look at it that way, as I said earlier, to attack the game and to give a good representation of us.
We all know how good Liverpool are. Obviously, you will have watched the game the other night. Do you think that the fact that went so deep has any bearing on Sunday's game? And generally, what are your thoughts about how you try and unpick this Liverpool team?
I don't think the extra time has anything to do with this game. I think there's a long enough recovery time for them to be back to normal. So I thought it was a great game, great advert for the Champions League. I thought it was two really good teams going against each other. I was entertained while watching the game, and of course I'm looking at it from a tactical perspective and an analytical perspective, trying to find ways that we think we can win. Very, very few coming through because they're so strong, but we always believe that we have an angle, and we always believe that we have the players that can make a difference against any any system or any team. So I've got total faith and belief in the players.
Okay, written guys, we'll get in as many questions as we can in the time. We'll start with Damien Spellman, we'll go Louise Taylor, and then Lee Ryder.
Eddie, there's been a lot written and said about the players you won't have available, but you, as both a player and a manager, have dealt with adversity throughout your career. Do you sense that same bloody-mindedness in your players?
Yeah, I think you have to. I think you have to come together stronger. So in the week that we had, that certainly didn't go as planned. We had players, and losing big players as well, and important players. Never easy. But you have to regroup, and then you have to come back stronger. And you have to come back stronger in a more unified way. That's always the key aspect. It's how you respond to it. We tried to double down on our core strengths. That doesn't change regarding on individuals available. And I think the spirit's been really good, and that's why West Ham was so important, and it wasn't lost on any of us after the game. That increased our feeling, that increased our unity, that increased our belief internally. We needed that win. Training's been good this week. The preparation's been very good. I've been happy with how everything's looking to this point. There's still 2 days left to go. So yeah, everything's positive now.
Thank you. Louise?
Hi, Eddie. I think Mo Salah has scored 13 goals in 14 appearances against your teams, Bournemouth and Newcastle.
Brilliant.
So it's really 2 questions. How do you stop him? And B, have you had any conversations with Salah after games?
I didn't know that, so thanks for that one. No conversations with Salah. I really respect him as a footballer, of course, but I don't tend to indulge in too many conversations with opposing players. For me, it's about my players and making sure I speak to them. Stopping him is a different train of thought totally. So I think we will have our plan. We always do have a plan against different opponents. Executing that to the best of our ability will be the key. And it's always about the team. So whenever there's an outstanding individual, and Liverpool have a few in different positions, attacking player-wise, and I think it's always about the team and making sure our structures are good, not about any individuals. Of course, the individuals around that area have to play very well too.
Thanks, Louise. Lee Ryder?
Eddie, how long will you leave it before you tell the goalkeepers who's going to be in and who's on the bench?
Everyone will find out at the same time when I name the team. When that will be, I'll leave that to myself, not to you guys. I think the team selection for these types of games is always difficult because there'll be players that are disappointed. Naturally, everyone wants to play in the bigger games, so I can only pick 11.
You talk about the disappointment, but even if they are disappointed, they could still have a role later in the game, and that, I guess that even includes the goalkeepers. We've seen keepers brought on for penalty shootouts in the past.
Everyone has a role, and if you're not starting the game, your role is to support the players that are playing, and that's just as important as stepping out onto the pitch, because if you don't support your teammates well enough, that can have a big negative effect on the group. So personal disappointment, I understand, but then you have to put it behind you and think of the team and the club.
Thanks, Lee. Luke Edwards, Mark Douglas, and then Ian Murter, please.
You've been Newcastle manager long enough now. You've heard talk of curses, which might have been something to do with me. But what is your message to the supporters who are conditioned for disappointment, that have been to, this will be the 6th final they've been in, and they've lost the previous 5? What is your message to them, and dispensing with that kind of negativity?
Yeah, I don't subscribe to that way of thinking, really. I think for me, that there isn't always a negative outcome. I understand, look, the final record that you mentioned there isn't great. But I take, for examples like qualifying for the Champions League, we had to go deep into the season, and it was nip and tuck as to whether we were going to qualify. We did. We got over the line. So I think there's examples where we have been really successful. Even getting to the finals isn't a given. As we've seen in the FA Cup, they're very, very difficult to get through and qualify. So, of course, now we're there, we just want to play to our true maximum capabilities, which we felt against Manchester United the last time we got there. It was an okay performance, but okay is not good enough. It's not going to win you trophies. So the destiny is in our own hands. It's not in any, I'm not even going to use the word that you mentioned, but it's not in those or that mindset really. It's about just us delivering a great performance if we can. And of course then talking about the other outcome and the other possibilities that exist, that's exciting. That's what we're here for. So I don't really have a general message on it, but that's the way I think.
Thanks, Luke. Mark?
Eddie, you mentioned about taking emotion out of it, but will you kind of remind the players how much it means to the city and what a big occasion it is, or do you sort of keep that out of it and very much approach it as another game?
Yeah, I don't want to say taking emotion out of it, but I think controlling it is the key. You need emotion. You need to feel all the excitement, the potential what ifs from the positive side, but you just need to control it. If you're too emotional, you won't perform at your best. If you're understimulated, which I'd be very surprised if anyone was, of course you won't perform at your best. So it's getting that sweet spot, it's getting that balance absolutely right, and that's what we'll try to do in our preparation. I think we've got a lot of experienced players. I think that has to be mentioned. Players that have played for their countries, Champions League games, won big competitions. I'm not worried about us on that side. So I think that's the key things.
Ian Merton?
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
You mentioned that it feels very different than 2 years ago. The fact that you didn't have a media day earlier this week, you're holding your press conference on the traditional day, suggests you're preparing in a way like a league game, not as a special occasion. Would that be fair?
I think that would be fair, and I think I made this point after West Ham. I think if we're changing our preparation for the team drastically for this one game, then there's a problem with how we prepare normally. So that's sort of my way of thinking. It should be every game's a cup final, really. Every Premier League game, they're so big that we want to perform to our best. So we want to keep it very, very stable for the players, so it's not anything too new, to give them the best chance of performing in the way that we normally perform.
Ian, sorry, I'm going to have to move it because just for time. I've got a crisp off to Scott and then to Jordan, please.
Morning, Eddie. Harvey Barnes during his time in Newcastle's had a lot of injury setbacks. He hasn't necessarily made that left wing position his own, but he obviously comes in for Anthony the other day, gets an assist. How big an opportunity is this for him to show why you signed him and his qualities on the biggest stage?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity potentially for Harvey. I think he did really well against West Ham because that's not an easy game for him to come in. Really pleased with his cross for the goal. I thought it was an outstanding piece of technical delivery, really floated the ball in. Bruno applied the finishing touch. He's done that consistently when he's played for us. He's very much a producer of big moments, goals, assists, which you want all your attacking players to have the capability of delivering. He's got that X factor. He's been competing with a very good player for the same position, although we have used Harvey off the right quite a lot when he's been fit, sort of the middle end of the season. I'm hopeful if selected, Harvey will give a good performance.
Scott?
Hi, Eddie. I know you said you think this team's a bit different with more control and everything, but when you've had success against big teams, particularly Liverpool in the past, it's tended to be real intensity, real aggression, knock them out their stride, kind of like St James's this season. You haven't really been able to do that to them at Anfield. Can you play like that in a Wembley final? That style?
I think we can play a number of styles. I don't think we're limited. I think we've done it in different ways against the bigger teams this year. I think we've been competitive in the main, probably Manchester City apart. I think we've been competitive in every other game. Even the Liverpool game recently was, yes, it was a 2-0 defeat, but I thought we were well in the game, conceded some poor goals. Our style, we do have adaptability, but also we have a clear method of how we want to play, clear principles we don't deviate from, although we can tweak things. So, I think the clear representation of us, both in and out of possession, will be absolutely vital for us this weekend.
Thanks, Scott. We've got a Jordan Cronin, Craig Hope and Martin Hardy, please.
Hi, Eddie. Just looking at Liverpool's left-hand side, how important will Joe Linton be given the absence of Anthony and Lewis?
Yeah, I've been really pleased with his return, actually. The two games that he's played, I thought the Brighton game he did really well. From a physical perspective, he looked himself, which is a big challenge after the type of injury that he had and the length of time he'd been out. And then back that up against West Ham with 90 minutes full of action, full of Joe Linton's big asset, covering ground, tackling, disrupting play, and of course he's got a lot of quality as well with the ball. And we miss him when he's not there. I think we miss his strength. So yeah, but of course he's a weapon for us in lots of different ways. Potentially defensively on that side, yes, I get the question. But of course the other way as well, and he's such an important player for us attacking. He can pop up with a goal when needed, so hopefully he plays a big game.
Thanks, Jordan. Craig?
Morning, Eddie. You said one of the keys will be keeping things the same. To that end, will you wear a suit when you lead out Newcastle? And just take us inside that moment, what it'll mean to you.
I've not really given that, to be honest, too much consideration. I think my attire will be very consistent with what you normally see, and that's not meant to be. I'm very respectful of traditions and what it means to be in that position as Newcastle manager, but I just think I'm better off focusing on the game rather than my attire. As I said, it means everything. I said when I came to the club, so proud to be here, so proud to represent the city, and I want to do it in the right way and try and make everybody proud and happy, and that's obviously the challenge that we have this weekend.
Okay, Martin Hardy.
Morning, Eddie. Can you put into words how great your desire is to win something, and at what point did the pain of 2023 start to fire you up to want to get back to Wembley?
Straight away, really, Martin. I think I remember the night after. The night of the final. I was not in a great place. Not too happy. Straight away, went to spend the night with my kids because I think they take you away from, because you can just live in that rethinking the game, rethinking everything that you've done. So they take you in a much better, healthier place. So hopefully I'm not in that mindset again this weekend. But I think, yeah, straight away, because you have to then go, right, let's get back to work. What could we have improved? What could we have done better? What can we do to have success in the future? And a lot of that invariably comes down to recruitment. So towards the end of that season, we're then looking at what players we need for the new one. And there's always hope. There's always another game. So that's how I look at it.
Sorry, and how great is that desire of yours to win a trophy?
Well, it couldn't be greater. And I think you can talk a good game, but I think it's in how you act every day, and it's how you try and push the team to new levels. So, yeah, I feel as motivated as I've ever been.
Okay, we've got time for one more. Dominic Skur.
Morning, Eddie. 3 centre-backs worked for you so well against Arsenal in the semi-final. With Sven Botman out injured, is that still an effective option for you to consider on Sunday?
It's still a potential option, yes. We are running out of defenders to a degree, which makes it a bit more difficult, of course. But I wouldn't rule anything out. That's why I said earlier, we do have a way of playing, but we're very free in terms of tactical setup. So we can, of course, change system, but the principles of our play would remain untouched.